Maxwell, welcome back for the fourth part of the interview.
Oh, thank you very much, Peter. I appreciate your kindness in inviting me to be on the show, and it's been a fun for me. It's been interesting so far, and I hope everyone is understanding what I do and who I am and what I'm talking about. Because I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy analyst.
Yes.
Used to be called, what I do used to be called many years ago journalism.
Ah, okay.
But we don't have any journalists anymore. There is no such a thing as journalism anymore. Just people who shoot their mouth off and make a lot of money and look pretty. They look pretty and they look handsome, and the pretty girls. But that's all there is. They're not journalists. They don't do any research on anything, and they're not going to put themselves out on a limb to tell you anything that they could get in trouble telling you. So there are no journalists, and there's only about 3 or 4 journalists in America, and so that's what I do. I just do the reading. I call myself a researcher, which the word "read" means do it again. So I'm
Yes.
not the world's foremost authority on anything. I'm just looking at everything all the authorities are saying for the last 500 years, looking at all of the different subjects and where they've come from and what they mean, and then I report on it. Just talking to people. There's nothing special about me, and the only thing I bring to the table at all is not how smart I am, because I'm smart enough to know how smart I'm not. And so I know that I don't know everything, and I could be wrong at any time. So, but what I do feel is important that I do, and I do it for this reason, is because I know a lot of very important people who have told me many things in private.
Yeah.
Plus, I've had many of my own one-on-one experiences. And so I can speak with authority on my own personal experiences, and I can talk about what other real authorities have said on the different subjects. So that's what I do. I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. I just know who the authorities are.
Mhm.
And I've talked with all of them over the many years. I've been doing this kind of research and talking and reporting for some 55, 56 years now. 56 years now. So I've been around. I've been all over the world. I've heard all the stories. I've met all kinds of interesting, fascinating people, important people, writers, authors, lecturers, teachers, astronauts, politicians, gangsters, and everybody else. So I've heard all the stories. And so that's why I enjoy talking to people about all the things that they've never heard before. And that's why it's a real pleasure to be on your show.
Jordan
So
Max. Oh,
where do
sorry.
we go? Where do we go from here?
Jordan Maxwell, before we enter our subject, can you comment the victory of Donald Trump as the new president of the United States?
Actually, in fact, no, because I don't really know that much about Donald Trump. Uh, all I know is that he's been a success in his life on his own, and I remember many years ago, Donald Trump, from many years ago, watching his company and what he was doing. I wasn't that interested, but I knew about him many years ago, and watching him building the hotels, etc., etc. But I don't have it. I have always been a apolitical. I have no, like George Carlin says, I don't have a dog in this race. I don't care about I don't care about politics. I don't care about the government. I don't care about politics. and I really don't care about the politics in America. But but having said that, I do have a knowledge about words and terms and symbols and things which are important to Americans that they don't know it yet. Nobody's told them yet, but there's a lot of things which are very important to know about American life, and about American history, and about American commerce and business, and where America came from, where it is now, and where it's heading. Uh, so I don't really have any views one way or the other about Donald Trump or the election at all. I just know that the whole entire world is lost because knowledge is power,
Yeah.
and the people of the whole world, all the way around the earth, because I've been around the world more than one time, and I know people are generally speaking around the world ill-informed, unread. They just live from day to day, doing whatever it is they do, and uh, and in point of fact, not being able to express a personality. They're just one more person out there on the street, doing whatever it is that the people do. And like I said to you last time, no child in school likes to be made fun of and laughed at by the other students. So children always like to hang together and be friends and not stand out. So all the other children will laugh at you and mock you. And so, children even have committed suicide because they were outcast, they were mistreated by their fellow students, and they lost heart. And they lost a reason for even living because they wanted to be accepted by their friends, and their friends laughed and mocked them, and so they ended up committing suicide. I've seen that happen before. And so I feel the same way about adults. Adults do not like to be laughed at and mocked and chided, and especially proven wrong on something they've always believed. All their life they believed something, and then one day somebody comes along and shows you absolute sovereign proof that you're wrong on what you believe. Well, like my dad used to tell me many years ago, do not try and teach a pig to sing, because it will waste your time and irritate the pig. So don't try and teach a pig to sing, meaning don't try and make people see the truth. You're just making enemies. So I learned a long time ago. I just put the work out there. I just put the documents and the materials and the truth out there, and whoever's supposed to hear it, they will, and whoever's not supposed to hear it, they won't. Whoever cares, that's fine. Whoever don't care, I don't care. I don't care either. So that's what I do. But American politics no longer interests me. It never has, really, but for sure now it doesn't. But I am kind of curious to see now where America's going to go. Now it's kind of like a new ball game. The old game's over, and now let's see what the new game is going to be. So in that way, I am kind of curious, but I don't have a dog in this race, so I don't care. I'm 76 years old. I got no family. I have nothing. I don't own anything. I got nothing. So I'm just doing what I do. I enjoy talking to people about things they've never heard of before and try and educate my fellow man. So that's what I do. I do the best I can with it. So where do we go from there?
Jordan Maxwell, we know for sure that the banking system is the real master of the world.
That's exactly right.
How did this
Yeah.
happen?
Well, it happens actually. Uh, Probably goes back to I don't know, maybe I would say the third or fourth century A.D. Third or fourth century A.D. especially the 5th century when the fall of the Roman Empire, when Rome finally officially collapsed and fell, right around, I think it's 426 AD, something like that. And then with the Roman Empire collapsing, um, the powers that be behind Rome, and that's something a lot of people don't know, is that behind Caesar, Caesar and the Roman government was one thing, but the real power were the people who owned Caesar, the people that Caesar represented behind the scenes. So Caesar was like our president in America, but our president really doesn't have much to say about anything. It's the guys who have, the investments in this country, the guys who own the banks, the guys who control the money, commerce, religion, the guys who control the country from behind the scenes. There's where the real power is. The real power is in the hands of people that you have never heard of and will never ever hear of. They run the country. And not only do they run the country, but they're in league with others like themselves around the world, and they run the world. And so the president really does not have very much power at all. He is like the president of a company, but you can be president of the Eaton Company, but if you get in trouble and do something you're not supposed to, and they find you and they find out the people who own the company, the big stockholders, they will replace you real quick. You're fired. You're not God. They'll fire you. The people who really own the company, they are the bosses. You're just the president of the corporation. But the president of the corporation, that's why you have vice presidents. Because if we get tired of you being president and I own the company, I'll just fire you. I don't have to worry about firing you. The vice president takes over immediately. So we don't need you. And as soon as the vice president takes over, the first thing he has to do is appoint another vice president, in case I decide I don't like him, and I fire the next president. And so the president of a corporation really does not have very much power. It's the people who own the corporation. They have the power. So when you understand how the world works, and I have said so many times, people don't. That's why we have no power. Americans, North America has really no power over their government. I mean, it was supposed to. We're called a democracy and the people's rule and all of that stuff, but that's a bunch of malarkey. The reason why we don't have the power over a government, we have no personal power, is because we have no personal knowledge. How many times have I said that on this show? That knowledge is power. And so without the knowledge of how your government works, what the words mean, and how it was set up, and how it operates in secret, that you don't know anything about. And so today in North America, and Canada and America, the people of the country look at what's going on, and it's all crazy and ludicrous and stupid and wasting billions of dollars here and hundreds of millions of dollars there, and then raising the taxes to the people. And so people realize there's something really, really corrupt and really bad about government. But, however, knowing that, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Why? Because we don't know how it works. I don't know what to do. I mean, normally a normal person in the street sees a crime, they go report it to the government, right? But when the government is committing the crime, who do you report it to? God? Well, you might as well talk to God, because you're not going to do anything about government crime because they're in control. And so, It's really too bad the way the world works. And the people, though, have no power. Now, I should say something else, is that in point of fact, here's a fact of history. The people of a country are the real power of the government. The people actually are the real power. Why? Simple. Because if you get uh, uh, say 25 million people in America showing up in Washington D.C., coming from all over America, showing up in Washington D.C., and you've got 25 million people, and they're coming, with pitchforks and hammers, and like they're looking for Frankenstein, right? And if they show up in Washington D.C. and there's 25 million of them, and they're making a demand, they're not asking, they're making a demand on the president to do something or the Congress to do something, whatever it is. Believe me, it will get done quickly, because the Congress knows and the president knows what I know, is that you're not going to mess with 25 million people. That ain't smart. And you're not going to bring out the military. You don't bring out the military against your own people, because all over the world, people all over the world and political leaders will see, wow, Caesar is bringing out the palace guards against his own people. And so that doesn't look good at all. He's lost control. Not only do the people not like him, they're making demands on him, and he's scared to death and sending the Marines out. And so that is very bad business. That's very bad for politics. And so the people really are the power. All you need is about 10 million people uprising and saying, we've had enough, and we don't want this or that law, or we don't want this and that person, whatever it is. And the people are the power. In relation to that, in the ancient Roman Empire, there was a maximum of law. A maximum of law that says the will of the people is the voice of God. That's actually in the law of Rome, the ancient Roman Empire. Think about that. The will of the people is the voice of God. Rome realized that if you get millions of people angry and they are demanding something, I don't care how powerful Caesar thinks he is, if you get that many people rising up against the empire and against the government, believe me, Caesar will do whatever it is that makes peace again. Whatever the people want, he will give them. Whatever it is, he will give them, so that everybody will be quiet and go home and relax, because if not, these people are mad, they're angry, and there's millions of them. And so the people are the power of the government, always. Another example I would give you is that if the king of China is meeting with the king of Russia and the king of America and the king of Canada and the king of Asia, and they're all the kings are meeting in a summit meeting, and you happen to be a king also. You are the king of Fredonia, a little island in the South Pacific that has 300 people living on it, most of them old people, but you're the king of the island. Are you going to be invited to that summit of the great kings? No. Why? Because the kings have more secretaries than you do people under you, right? So you're just the king of about 250 old people on an island out in the middle of the ocean. You don't count. So that's why today people listen to the President of the United States, or to the Pope in Rome, or to the Prime Minister of England. This is why they listen to them. Why? Because they represent a powerful amount of people. When the Pope speaks, he's representing hundreds of millions of people, and politicians know that. They maybe don't like him, can't stand him, but he does represent a powerful presence in the earth, and you don't want to mess with that. So it's better to make a deal with him. And so that's the way politics works. So that's what I'm saying. People have no power because knowledge is power. And we were talking about banking. Well, first of all, uh, as I said, I think modern day banking, I know that modern day banking all over the world began with what we call the Knights Templars, the Knights of the Temple of Solomon, the Knights Templars, and Steven Spielberg and George Lucas have talked about that in the Indiana Jones series. Shows in, like, for instance, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And in the Last Crusade, the Nazis, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, are looking for the cup of Christ. The cup is called the cup of the Grail. And in there you find out that the real people who have the cup of the Grail, the cup of Christ, which is the most sacred symbol supposedly in Christianity, as the cup or the Holy Grail. Well, in the movie Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, and of course Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you find that the Nazis are looking for the cup of the Grail, the Holy Cup, and Indiana Jones, representing America, is looking for the Grail. And so all of this is saying that what we see in the Bible, talking about the biblical stories, and of course, going back to the subject of banking, Indiana Jones confronts not only in the movie, The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones finally actually comes face to face with the people who have the real power, and they're Knights Templars. It's a Masonic order of Knights Templars, and they are holding the Grail. Remember, and so it's the same Knights Templars that created international banking many, many, many years ago, back in the 4th and 5th century A.D., with the coming of the Masonic orders in the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church gave birth to Freemasonry. And so they were called the Knights Templars. And the Knights Templars became so wealthy because they operated in secret behind the scenes. And so the Knights Templars, what they did was very clever. It was very dangerous roaming around the world with money in your pocket, with silver and gold coins in the Middle East. People would kill you just because they don't like your looks. But if they found out you had a lot of gold coins on you, you're really looking for trouble. And so it became very dangerous to roam around the Middle East, just like it is today. Very dangerous to roam around the world with a lot of money in your pocket. And so what the Knights Templars did is they set up forts. They set up forts around the Middle East, Near East and Middle East, and those forts were protecting the property of the Knights Templars and whatever they were protecting. Well, what they did is they invented something very interesting. If you were in Rome and you were a Knights Templar, or if you were a wealthy person in Europe and you were a Catholic and you wanted to travel, you would go to the Knights Templar establishment, say in Rome or somewhere in Italy. You would go to a Knights Templar establishment, a church or a cathedral, and you would deposit your money with them in Europe because you know it's safe there. So you deposit your money there, but then the Knights Templars would give you a piece of paper that said that they were holding your money, and that your money is in the hands of the Knights Templars in Rome or in Italy or wherever. And now you could go to the Middle East with just a piece of paper. Well, nobody's going to kill you for a piece of paper. And so then when you get to the Middle East, you could go to one of the forts where the Knights Templars are, and they would then give you the money that the paperwork showed that you had. So the Knights Templars knew, it's their money and it's in their hands. It belongs to you. So that's where we get the idea of writing a check. And so they check on you. But when you go to the Middle East, they will, you say you have money in the bank. Well, they would check on that to see if you do have money in the bank. So that's where we get writing a check. And so the whole banking system today is based on the Masonic order of the Knights Templars. That's what we call today international and national banking. So when you go into a bank today, you need to understand banks are the offspring or the product is what I'm looking for. Banks today are the product of the Roman Catholic Church and the secret society of Knights Templars during the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th century AD, who set up a banking system for people to roam around the world and not have to carry money with them. Just take a piece of paper showing how much money you deposited, and you can pick that much money up when you get to where you're going. So that's where banking first started, within the Roman Catholic Church and the Knights Templar Masonic Lodge in the Roman Church. Now, having said that, now, of course, we get into something called commerce, because now you have banking, well, now you have commerce. In the dictionary, if you look at a law dictionary especially, go to a library or go on the web to a law dictionary and look up the word commerce. Commerce we think of as business, but look at the actual, in fact, lawful definition in a law dictionary of the word commerce. Commerce is sex. That's what word commerce means in law, sex. And so it's a business. And so, it may be dangerous business, it may be funny business, but it's business. And that's why when you get married, you have to have a license. Why do you have to have a license? Because the banks own you, and therefore you have to have a license to get married. Why? Because it's a business license. You can't do business without a license. Well, I'm not doing any business. Yes, you are, because according to international law, marriage is a business. Marriage is a business, and if you don't think it's a business, I mean, it's your business, none of my business, but it's a business. It's your business. Or if I'm getting married, that's my business, not yours. But if it's my business, it's still a business. And if the business doesn't work out, you're not going to God, you're going to court. And you better bring your house and your car and your children and everything else to court. Why? We're just talking business. It's a business. She's a corporation. This is what the way the banks set it up many centuries ago. Many centuries ago, it was decided that every human being was a business. And of course, your business is none of my business. But we both have a business. Therefore, the banks back in the Middle Ages decided the way they would operate is that every single human being is a corporation. Now understand this. No law in North America or in the Western civilization, no law, federal, state, county, city, commercial, nothing. No laws in Western civilization, especially in Canada and America, no laws apply to you, the person, the flesh and blood you. There are no laws that apply to you. Period. End of sentence. That's what the law says. However, in order to control you, the state and the banks decided a long time ago, before your mother was born, the banks decided that they would make everybody a corporation. So that's why when you pass away, we say you're a corpse. Because when you were alive, you were a corporation. And so, and then when you die, you are out of business. Of course, it's none of my business, but you're out of business. And so it's the end of the world. Yeah, the end of the world for you. Not me, but the end of the world for you. You're out of business. And therefore you're a corpse because you are a corporation. So the banks then decided that there is no law that you are under as a flesh and blood person. Because even your mother does not have control over your thoughts, over where you go or what you eat or where you decide to go or who you're out with and who you live with. Your mother doesn't even have that control over you. And you don't have that control over her. People will do whatever they're going to do, and that's none of your business. Where your mother goes and what she does, none of your business. Well, and there's none of her business where you, as an adult, what you eat and where you go is none of her business. So the point being is that laws do not apply to you personally. No law in America or Canada applies to you personally. So how does it work? Well, the banks, along with government, have decided that you, many, many years ago, like I said, before your mother was born, the banks decided that you, in order to control you, since nobody can control you, your mother can't even control you, your friends who are right next to you, they can't control you. And so the banks know, well, hell, if his mother can't control him, I know I can. So what they did is they created another you. Now there's two of you. There's the personal you that nobody can control. And there is the fictitious you, which is a business you that the government controls. So you see, the government cannot control your personal life. They can't control who you talk to and who you see and where you go to eat and what you're thinking, what your ideas are. They don't know what your ideas are. They don't care because they got no control over that at all. But what you do in business, now that's different. When you go public and you get a license to do business, now what you do is not personal. Now it's business. That's when the government can now step in and decide what you're going to do and what you can't do. Because it's no longer personal. Now it's you and the government. Therefore, if you're going to get married, you're going to make money. Your wife may be making money. You may open up a company and a corporation. You may this and you may do that. The government has control over that because they gave you a license to do business. And so you have to have a license. Well, the same reason why that lawyers, attorneys have to have a license to practice law. Why? Simple, because the attorneys and the lawyers are representing you in a court using law books. They've studied the law books. You haven't. They have. And therefore, when they're through studying the law books, they take a test. And if they pass the test, then they get what is called a law degree. Now they are lawfully, they can represent you now in court because you are a corporation. And they cannot represent you, your flesh and blood, but they can represent you legally, lawfully, in business. And your marriage is a business. So like I said, there's a big difference between you personally and you as a business. And so there's two of you. And, and so that's where the banks now got you. Because when you walk into a bank or doing any business with the bank, there's two of you in the bank. There's the personal one wearing the shirt and the tie that you're wearing, and the bank has got nothing to do with that. They don't care where you eat or who you're living with. They don't care about that. That's personal. But now you're going to represent yourself in business. So now that's government. And so that's why there's two of you. Now, how do you know the difference? How would anybody looking at you know the difference between you personally and you in government you? Because there's two of you. There's a private you and a public you. How do you tell the difference? Very simple. The way you sign your name. The way you sign your name will tell the world and government and the law which one they're dealing with. So when you sign your name upper and lower case, that's according to British Styles magazine, the British Maritime Law, when you sign your name upper and lower case, capital letter, then lower case, capital letter, and lower case, upper and lower case means your personal body. It means your personal self. However, if you're going to do business, then the law says your name must be in all capital letters. Why? Because you are now dealing in capital, money. You're now dealing with money and business and government.
Unfortunately, Jordan Maxwell, I think the first victims of banking system are the students, because a university is fucking lot expensive, and after their studies, their debts are very high. You know, many thousands of
Yeah, I
dollars.
know. I know. Let me tell you something about that.
Yeah,
When a student applies for a loan from the government loan, how that really works. According to law, according to actual banking law in North America, both in Canada and America, according to banking law, banks cannot loan money, period. That's the law. A bank cannot loan money. I explained it to you last time.
yeah,
If I walk into a bank and I put $25,000 of my money into the bank, into my account in cash, and the next day you come in and want a $25,000 boat and they finance it for you, what did they do? Did they give you my $25,000 that I put in? I didn't put my money in there so you can go buy your boat. The hell is wrong with you? I didn't give the bank money so they can give it to you. And so, well, that's the law says they can't give you my money. That's my money. Well, the bank, at the end of each banking day, the bank has written all kinds of checks for people to buy houses and boats and cars and planes and everything else. And at the end of every banking day, maybe the bank has written $1 million worth of business that day. That they financed a bunch of cars and a couple of apartment buildings, and so they've spent, you know, they have written checks for $1.5 million in one day. Where did that money come from? Because you can bet it didn't come from my money. I'll walk in there, I want to see my money. I don't care how many checks you wrote for everybody else. That's wonderful. But don't give them my money. And so the law says that banks cannot loan anybody's money to anybody, period. When you put money in the bank, that's your money, and they cannot give it to somebody else. Well, then the question should be, well, if you did $1 million worth of business today, financing homes and car and tractors and motorcycles and everything else, where did you get the money? And then you find out, well, they're not really, nobody got loaned anything. Nobody got money for anything. Here's the way it works. When you go into an auto agency, for instance, and you want to buy a new car, let's say the new car is priced at $30,000. Okay. The reason we know it's $30,000 is because each and every car, according to the law, each car must be appraised by a state-approved appraiser. So there are companies that will appraise every new car and stamp on the paperwork that this car is, according to government records, worth $30,000. So the government says, okay, that's what you say it's worth. That's what it's worth. You're the appraiser. Now that car is worth $30,000 and you want to buy it and you don't have the money. So what did they do? When you go into to buy the car, if your credit looks good, you look like you could pay the car off, what they will do is they will take the paperwork. They say go to the auto agency and pick up the paperwork and bring it to the bank. Okay, so you go back to the car agency, they get the paperwork, you sign all the papers, then you take all the paperwork over to the bank. Now the bank now has the paperwork. In law and in commerce, that's called commercial paper. Commercial paper, meaning that documents you brought in from the car agency is worth $30,000. It's representing $30,000 in business. And so they take that paperwork and they put it into an account. They open up a bank account in your name. But you don't know that. This is not for you to know. They open up a bank account. And you cannot, according to federal law, nobody can open a bank account without signing their name. I can't open up a bank account in your name and sign your name. That's fraud. I'll go to jail. And if you're going to open up a bank account, you have to sign the paperwork that you're opening a bank account. And if you don't sign the paper, then you're not opening any bank account. And so when the bank takes that paperwork from the car agency, they open up a bank account in your name, but they don't tell you they're doing that. That's secret. Then they open up the bank account in your name. Then they take the paperwork, which is worth $30,000. It represents $30,000, and they put that paperwork into the bank account. And so now the paperwork is worth $30,000, and they just put it into a bank account in their bank that they opened up for you, and you didn't know it. And they put that $30,000 paperwork, commercial paper, into the bank account. So now, as it stands, you've got $30,000 in your bank account. Then they write you a check on it. They write you a check on your checking account. You don't even get to do it. They write the check on your checking account for $30,000. Now you have the $30,000 check, the check for $30,000 that you can take back to the car agency and pay them up, and they're happy. They got paid, and you're happy. You got the car, and the bank is happy because they own the car. They're the ones that got the pink slip. They've got the ownership. You don't own it. You have an equitable interest. In other words, you've got money involved in the car, but you don't own it. They own it because they paid for it. How? When you put the car's paperwork into the bank, they opened up a bank account and then wrote you a check on your bank account that they didn't tell you you had, and then they own the paperwork. So ultimately they own the car, not you. And so when you finally do pay the car that cost $30,000, you finally pay it off, and it cost you probably $60,000 to pay it off over a period of 10 years. You finally pay the car off. You don't get the ownership. You still don't own the car. You never, ever, ever own the car. Just like when you pay your house off, the last and final payment, you do not own the house. And in law, it says that you have an equitable interest in the house. You have an equitable interest in the car, but you do not own the car. You have money invested in it. So if I'm going to buy the house from you, I have to give you some money because you've got money invested in it. And so I have to pay you whatever it is you want because that's how much money you've got into it. So I have to pay you to get the house. But you don't own the house. You can only get an equitable interest. You can get paid for it, but you don't own it. And so you can get paid for the car. If I buy it from you for $15,000 a year later, you don't own the car. I don't own the car, but I do have to pay you because you do have money invested in it. So I have to pay you. That's called equitable interest. Nobody in North America owns anything, period. Let me restate that in case you didn't get it. Nobody in North America owns anything. You do not own your home. You do not own your new car. You don't own anything. Why? Because you never paid for it. And if you don't pay for something, you don't own it. And according to international maritime admiralty law, international banking law, gold and silver coin is referred to as the coin of the realm. And anytime you are buying something, you put down gold coins or silver coins, by law, international law, you own it. You paid money. But in America and Canada, you don't pay money. You pay a piece of a bill. But that's not money. Because on the bill, even on the American dollar bill, it will tell you this $1 bill represents the money, represents real money. It doesn't say this is real money. It says this is a representation of real money, meaning we will use it like it's real money. But lawfully, it's not real money. It's just a piece of paper. Well, when you walk into a bank with a check, and I write you out a check for $1,000, that's not money. You can't walk into Sears or walk into a market or something and buy groceries with that check I gave you. That's just a piece of paper I gave you. You can't use it to do business. I mean, you can't use it to go out and buy something. So it's just a check. So the point I'm making is, if you're going to own something, you have to get it allodially. The word in law is called allodial, A-L-L-O-D-I-A-L, allodial. So if you're going to buy a new car or buy a home or buy a motorcycle or a boat or whatever you're going to buy, you tell the person, you tell the company or the bank or the agency you're buying from, you want to buy it allodally. A-L-L-O-D-I-A-L, allodial. You want an allodial title. Allodial title means you own it, period. Government cannot tax you on it. Government cannot take it away. Federal government cannot touch it. The state cannot touch it. The banks cannot touch it. You own it. Allodally, under international law, that means nobody, including God, nobody can touch anything you own allodally. Look it up in a law dictionary. So, if you don't have an allodial title on your motorcycle or your car or your home or anything else you own, then you don't own it. You have an equitable interest. You have money involved in it, and other people have to give you that money that's involved. But in point of fact, you don't, in fact, own nothing. That's the way it works. It's called banking. And so, where do we find banks? I think I said it the last time. Where do you find a bank? You find banks on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency, because your money is referred to as a currency. It's a current. It's an ebb and flow. That's why we say, money goes through your hands like water. No, money is a current. It's a cash flow, a liquid asset. It is water. So your house is not paid for, it's underwater. Or you're drowning in debt, or you have an offshore account. We could go on for hours talking about all the words in relation to banking that shows it's water. And so And if you don't pay your loan, the bank will put a levy on your account. Levy, like a, so anyway, the point being is that money is water, period. And you are 70 to 80% water. So you are a maritime admiralty product because you were born out of your mother's water. Your mother's water broke and you came out, and so now you are a maritime admiralty water product. And your money is water, and you water the whole thing. So we say you're flush with money, or your bank account has dried up. So it's fascinating. And let me give you one more example that most people have never thought about. If I have an office and I want you to paint my office, I call you as a contractor. You come over, look at the job, and then you give me a price. How much will it cost for you to paint my office? Okay. When you come up with a price, you tell me, and if I don't mind it, I will say, okay, do it. I have just now made a contract with you that you do the job and I will pay you. Okay. Now, when the job is done, you come to me with a bill. And the bill, let's say it's $100, say. So you hand me a bill for the painting job for $100. So now I'm standing there looking at you, and I'm holding a bill that you gave me for $100. Okay. Now I reach into my pocket and I pull out my wallet, and I give you $100 bill. I just gave you a bill that has 100 on it, so it's $100 bill. Unless, of course, you gave me a bill for $20, then I would reach in my pocket and pull out a $20 bill and give it to you. Now you're paid. No, you're not. You gave me a bill. I gave you a bill. You gave me a bill for $50. I gave you a $50 bill. You gave me a bill for $20. I handed you a $20 bill. You owe me. It's called a bill, a dollar bill. Why? Because it's a bill. You owe me. The idea being is that I didn't give you anything. What I did is I neutralized the debt. I didn't pay a bill. I neutralized the debt. Meaning, I owe you 100. Okay, I just give you a $100 bill. Now you owe me 100. So we're even. All you got to do is keep your receipt, and we're even. You owe me 100, and I owe you 100. So we're even. Now all you got to do is make sure you keep the record to make sure that we are, in case there's any discussion about it, I can show where no, I gave you a bill, and you owe me $100. And here's your bill, and I owe you 100. So leave me alone. I paid you, and so we're even, right? I didn't say we paid each other off. I said we're even. You give me $100 bill. I give you a $100 bill. Now we're even. You owe me, and I owe you. So let's forget it. That's the way banks work. Banks do not loan money. They take whatever you're buying. They keep the pink slip. And they collect, and then they want you to pay that $30,000. But here's another little incident that you don't know. When you're paying that $30,000, that's not money that the bank loaned you. That's not money. They didn't loan you that. They kept the paperwork, which represents $30,000. So you were paying the $30,000 back with interest. According to international law, and in the last 10 years, it's called RICO. RICO. Have you ever heard the word RICO? Okay, RICO has to do with international law, federal laws that says if you're doing any kind of business that's illegal, unlawful, you can go to prison. I don't care if you're General Motors. It doesn't matter. You do something illegal and unlawful, stealing other people's money or ripping them off or doing something, and you found guilty in court, You can go to prison for that. It's called RICO, the RICO Act in California, RICO Act in America. It has to do with racketeering laws. So one of the racketeering laws in RICO says that if you accept interest for money that you did not loan, that is a felony, and you can go to prison for that. Why did they put that into the RICO law in America? Why? Because of the mafia. Mafia was making loans to people, loan sharking. And they give you $500, but by the time you pay them back, it's $6,000. And so they're collecting a lot of interest on you. But you see, now with the RICO laws, you can go to the feds and say, look it, I borrowed 500 and here I've got 6,000 I paid him back. And now he can go to prison under RICO laws. That's against the law to charge interest, that exorbitant interest. But it's also against the law, really against the law, to charge interest on something you never paid anything. So if somebody is charging you interest on money they never gave you, that's a real ripoff. And so therefore, when you check with the law books, you will see that you paid interest on a loan, on your car or your home. And the law says if you pay interest, if it's you can't pay interest on something that was never given to you. So the banks will say, well, see, we give you $300,000 to buy your home, and that's why you owe us interest. No, you never gave me $300,000. You took the paperwork, which represented the $300,000. You put it into the bank and opened a bank account, and then you wrote a check on that $300,000 to the homeowner. But you didn't give me $300,000. You took the property, which was worth $300,000, and then put it into a private banking account without telling me, and then wrote another check on it. And so you never paid me anything. Oh, well, now the bank knows that you have found them out. And the first thing they will do is call the lawyers. And they will tell the lawyers, we got some problems here. Some guy just came into the bank and he said that we didn't loan him the money. And according to RICO law, we are collecting interest on money we didn't give him. And that's serious. You better get down here quick and bring the lawyers. Why? Because he's right. And if he goes to court, we may be going to jail. We may be going to jail for this if we accepted interest according to RICO laws, according to the federal commercial laws, because we didn't give him a nickel, and yet we're collecting interest on supposedly gave him $300,000. So I'm just saying that when you look into banking and how it really works, how government really works, how the whole entire system in Western civilization really works, you better go back and do some homework, because you haven't figured it out yet, how big and how nasty this whole commercial, governmental, educational, military, religious whole system that we live under in the Western world is corrupt, lying. It's high crimes and treason against the people, against the state, against the government. It's just amazing how much absolute treason and lies and deception that has been misleading the people into believing things which are just not true. So my point being is that if you're going to talk about banking, go back and look at where it all came from. Go back to the Knights Templar, back in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th century AD. AD, not BC. And you will see that most of all banking comes from the Knights Templars, and the Knights Templars was a Catholic, Roman Catholic Masonic order, a secret society within the Roman Catholic Church. Go back and read it in an encyclopedia, a dictionary. Look up Knights Templars, and you will see that the Knights Templars gave you today that jazzy, silly operation we call banking. It's a corrupt, dirty system, and it has used people because the people are ignorant. They don't know. They've never read anything. They don't know. They don't go to school to learn, and they're never going to teach you any of this in school. If you go to be a lawyer or going to be a banker and you're going to studying banking, they're never going to tell you what I'm telling you. They're just going to show you the procedures. Well, here's the way the bank does this, and here's the way the bank does that. Now, if you're going to be a banker, here's what you have to do, and here's how it works, and this is the way, and this is that, and then we'll take a test on it, and if you pass the test, then you can be a banker. So here's the way it all works. But the student never says, wait a minute, what the hell are you talking about? Is this legal? Is this lawful under federal law, under international commercial law? Is this legal? All of a sudden, your college is over. They've had enough of you. You're talking too much. You're thinking too much. You not only do not get a degree, but you get kicked out. They don't want you talking to the other students like this and telling people to read and study and educate yourself as to what's really going on. That's trouble. And you're not going to cause that kind of trouble. They're going to kick you out of college now and get rid of you. Why? Because you know too much. And now you're talking too much. And everybody else in town is going to hear about it, and we're going to have some big problems. And so we would prefer you keep your mouth shut. Get out of here. We ain't giving you a degree. You ain't working for no bank around here. So the bottom line on all of it is, you need to wake up and understand government, religion, churches, synagogues, mosque. I don't care what kind of religious place you go to. It's all run by the same people. Islam, Christianity, Judaism, the banks, the military, the army, the navy. It's all run by the same people. The whole entire superstructure of Western civilization is run from behind the scenes by some very powerful people who have been behind the scenes before your mother was born. And you will never know who they are. You will never see them. And there's no way to report them to the police or to the government because they are the government. They are the government. They will rape, lie, and steal and do anything they please. And if you don't like it, you go to prison. So what you need to do is shut up, go watch your ball game, and have a couple of beers, and don't worry about it because we're in charge. So once you understand how banks work and the world works, then you begin to wake up to the reality that you are living on a prison planet. The whole world, like the Bible says in the New Testament, the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one, which means the entire world of mankind is lying in the power of the demonic. Demonic lies, tricks, deception, pornographic, drugs, war, violence, using people, misusing people. And when we talk about how adults are misusing children, well, yeah, but the government's misusing you. And you've been acting like a kid all your life. You didn't know anything. So therefore, since you were like a kid, you don't know anything more about it than a 10-year-old. You don't know how a 10-year-old doesn't know how the government works in banks. Well, that's okay. You don't either. So you're like a child too. There's nothing mature about you. And so therefore, that's why the government is mistreating you. So we talk about adults who are mishandling and mistreating children. Well, the government is mistreating you. It's not telling you anything. When did you hear about any of this stuff on the nightly news? When did you ever hear anything on television news about how the banks really work? When did you ever hear anything on the nightly news about who really prints your money and how your government actually, in fact, works? When do you hear anything about that? No, all you hear is your basketball score and your football score and your soccer ball and your tennis ball and your bowling ball and your ping pong ball and your baseball and your basketball and all the ball games and then the weather and sports. And that's it. That's all you need to know.
And banking got
And
us by our balls.
I'm afraid so. I'm afraid so. That's it. That's the way the world works. It's all high crimes and treason and lies and deception. And as long as the people, the adult people, don't know anything about it, they don't understand anything about it, and nobody reads and nobody understands anything, then everything's fine. It'll continue to go and just get worse and worse and worse, and the corruption just keeps going higher and higher and more evil. But that's life. It's life in the big cities. So I have always said, that's what I try and do. Wake people up to the fact of how much is going on that they have no idea in the world about. Educate yourself. Intellectually educate yourself as to where things come from. Who says the government is empowered to do this or that? Who said that the law says this and that? Nobody seems to ask the question, whose law? Like I said, the attorneys and lawyers, they have to have a license. Why? It's because they are doing business with a law book. And you can't use a law book and do business to make money. That's against the law. If I write a story, if I write a novel, and you want to produce that novel in a movie, well, that's fine. I'm impressed that my novel is going to be made into a movie. But you have better get my permission to make a movie on my book. That's my book, my story. You want to use it, maybe I'll let you. If you pay me up front, and you better pay me what I want. Why? Because I own the story, not you. So if you want to use my story, then pay me. And if you don't pay me, then don't use it. Well, that's the same thing the lawyers are told when they get their law degree. You are now able to make money from the law books that you have read and studied. But the people who wrote the law book, they own the copyright on that law book. And you're going to go out and use that law book to make money in court. So you can't go out and make money in court using my law book that I wrote without a permit. It's called a license. So attorneys have to be licensed, meaning they have paid money and they have agreed to pay me a percentage of whatever they do. They have to pay me because that's my law book. I'm the one that wrote it, not you. You're making money with it, but it's my law book. So you want to use my law book in court? Yeah, that's fine. Pay me. Get a license. Because if you go into court and you don't have a license, yeah, I would throw you out of court. You have no right to use my law books to make money. So just understand that about the law. Even lawyers have to have a license, just like you need a license to get married, just like you need a license and a permit to do this, a permit to do that, and a license to do this, and a license to build that. You need a permit for this. It's all because you don't have any power at all, period, about nothing. Period. You need to get a permit. You need to get a license. You need to ask permission. You don't have any power. Because knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
Jordan Maxwell, once more, thank you for your brilliant analysis of the world situation.
Well, thank you for having me, and I always appreciate the program, and I thank you too, Peter. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
So I'll contact you in a few weeks for the fifth part of the interview.
Well, is that a threat?
No, no.
Okay. All right. But no, I'm always happy. So give me a call and send me an email. I'd be happy to do it.
Okay, no problem, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.